Close your eyes for a second. You're back in the 1980s. The mall doors slide open. The air smells like popcorn and carpet cleaner. Sears anchors one end. Toys R Us glows like a promise. A blue light flashes somewhere inside Kmart. These weren't just stores. They were chapters of our lives. Today, we're remembering 10 iconic 1980s stores that shaped how America shopped, gathered, and grew up. From flipping records at Peaches to fixing things with your dad after a trip to Western Auto. Most of them are gone now. And the quiet question is harder than it sounds. When they disappeared, what else did we lose with them? Kinney shoes. Every fall, there was a ritual. Not exciting, not glamorous, but deeply familiar. You needed new shoes for school, and that meant Kinney shoes. It was the kind of store every mall had. Rows of practical sneakers, dress shoes for church, boots for winter. Nothing flashy, just dependable. Parents trusted it. Kids tolerated it. But years later, that's exactly why it mattered. Kinney shoes wasn't about fashion trends. It was about routine, stability, the quiet rhythm of family life. A place where you stood on that little metal measuring tool while your mom asked, "Do these feel tight?" As malls began to fade and big box retailers took over, stores like Kinney Shoes lost their place in the ecosystem. They couldn't compete on price, couldn't scale, and eventually they disappeared without much noise. No headlines, no grand farewell. Just another light turned off in another empty mall corridor. Eckerd drugs. Before everything lived on your phone, memories lived on film, and Eckerd was where you brought them. Eckerd Drugs wasn't just a pharmacy. It was where families stopped for school supplies, birthday cards, shampoo, candy bars, and most importantly, photo envelopes. You'd drop off a roll of film, wait a few days, then come back to see your life printed on glossy paper. Vacation photos, Christmas mornings, awkward family portraits. All of it passed through that small photo counter. For many communities, Eckerd was part of daily life. Familiar employees, familiar aisles, a quiet reliability that didn't need attention to exist. But retail pharmacy became a brutal battlefield. CVS and Walgreens expanded aggressively. Bigger stores, more locations, more efficiency. Eckerd couldn't keep up. Eventually, the name disappeared through mergers and rebranding. And with it went something subtle but important, the feeling that your everyday life had a place where it physically belonged. Western Auto. For a lot of kids, Western Auto was where you learned what adulthood looked like. This wasn't a toy store. This was where your dad went. Shelves of tools, auto parts, lawn equipment, hardware. The smell of rubber and oil in the air, it felt serious, grown up, like the backstage of everyday life. Western Auto served people who fixed things themselves, people who didn't throw things away yet. If something broke, you didn't replace it. You went to Western Auto and figured it out. It wasn't just retail. It was a culture of self-reliance. But as retail consolidated and corporate ownership shifted, Western Auto lost its identity, acquired, rebranded, slowly erased. The name faded from storefronts, replaced by chains with less personality and more efficiency. What disappeared wasn't just a store. It was the feeling that you belonged to a generation that knew how to repair, build, and understand the world around you. Woolworths. In small towns across America, Woolworths wasn't optional. It was essential. 5 and dime stores like Woolworths were where you bought everything: school notebooks, birthday gifts, kitchen supplies, holiday decorations. But more than that, they were where you spent time. And then there was the lunch counter. Kids spinning on stools, teenagers sharing milkshakes, seniors sipping coffee while chatting with staff they'd known for years. Woolworths wasn't just retail. It was community infrastructure. For decades, these stores quietly held towns together. But when giant discount retailers arrived with massive parking lots and lower prices, Woolworths couldn't compete on scale. Efficiency replaced familiarity. Volume replaced relationships. One by one, locations closed. And when Woolworths disappeared, many towns didn't just lose a store. They lost a gathering place, a shared rhythm, a piece of their social heartbeat. Peach's records and tapes. If Toys R Us was childhood, Peach's Records was identity. This wasn't just where you bought music. This was where you discovered who you were. Walking into Peach's felt electric. Walls covered in massive album art, posters everywhere, music playing loud enough to make you feel like you belonged to something bigger. You didn't just browse, you explored. Teenagers didn't go there to shop quickly. They went to linger, to flip records slowly, to judge albums by their covers, to ask the clerk what was worth listening to. But Peaches didn't survive long enough to see the digital era. The chain expanded too fast, took on too much debt, and collapsed in the early 1980s, long before MP3s, long before streaming, long before Spotify. And in a way, that makes its disappearance even more symbolic. Because Peaches wasn't killed by technology. It vanished while the ritual of music still mattered. Yet what came later finished the job for nearly every remaining record store. Downloads replaced shelves. Streaming replaced ownership. Convenience replaced experience. Peaches didn't die because people stopped loving music. It died and was later echoed by countless other stores because the world slowly stopped giving music a physical place to live. Radio Shack. There was a time when curiosity had a physical address. It was called Radio Shack. Walk inside, and you didn't just see products, you saw possibilities. Drawers filled with tiny components. Walls covered in cables, switches, adapters, parts you didn't fully understand but somehow wanted anyway. It felt like a workshop for the future. This was where kids first imagined building something, where parents fixed broken electronics instead of replacing them, where you could walk in with a problem and walk out with a solution. Before online shopping, before overnight delivery, Radio Shack was the emergency room of technology. If something stopped working, this was where you went. But as technology became sealed, simplified, disposable, the need for hands-on understanding faded. Big box retailers undercut prices. Amazon removed the need to leave your house at all. Radio Shack didn't just disappear. It marked the moment when technology stopped being something people touched and became something they only used. Abraham and Strauss A and S. And S wasn't just a department store. It was an occasion. For generations of New York families, Abraham and Strauss represented something formal, elevated, almost ceremonial. You dressed differently when you went there. You moved slower. You expected service. Sales associates knew their departments. They helped you choose. They treated shopping like something that mattered. Clothing, jewelry, furniture. It wasn't about grabbing whatever was cheapest. It was about taste, pride, presentation. A and S stood for a version of retail that felt human. But corporate consolidation changed everything. When Macy's acquired the chain, the name vanished almost overnight. What replaced it was more efficient, but also more anonymous. Same layouts, same branding, same experience everywhere. The disappearance of A&S symbolized something bigger than a rebrand. It was the quiet end of regional identity in retail. The moment when uniqueness gave way to uniformity. Kmart. If the mall had a heartbeat, Kmart was part of the rhythm. Families didn't just shop there. They lived there for a while. Back-to-school lists, holiday decorations, random Saturday errands that somehow lasted hours. And then there was the blue light special. An announcement over the speakers. A flashing blue light. Shoppers moving faster. For a moment, the store felt alive in a way no algorithm could ever replicate. Kmart understood something modern retail forgot. Shopping wasn't just about efficiency. It was about experience. But while Walmart mastered logistics and Target modernized design, Kmart stayed stuck between eras. Too big to feel personal. Too outdated to feel competitive. Years of mismanagement did the rest. Kmart didn't collapse overnight. It slowly faded. Locations closing quietly. Lights turning off one by one. And with each closure, another piece of middle-class routine disappeared. Sears. Every mall had anchors, and Sears was the heaviest one. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't trendy, but it was dependable. Appliances, tools, clothing, tires, portrait studios, catalogs, Christmas wish books. Sears didn't just serve customers. It structured entire weekends, entire family routines, entire shopping ecosystems. When Sears thrived, malls thrived. When Sears weakened, everything around it began to decay. This wasn't just retail failure. It was structural collapse. Years of poor leadership decisions hollowed the company out. Stores weren't updated. Investments stopped. Customers noticed. Foot traffic declined. Other stores suffered. Entire malls emptied. Sears didn't fall because people stopped needing what it sold. It fell because leadership forgot what it represented. When the doors finally closed, the silence wasn't just about losing a store. It was the sound of an era ending. Toys R Us. For kids, this wasn't a store. It was a universe. Automatic doors opened, and suddenly everything felt possible. Endless aisles, bright colors, bikes hanging from the ceiling, video game demos glowing in the corner, the giraffe, the music, the sense that joy was actually built into the architecture. This was where birthdays began, where Christmas dreams were born, where imagination felt unlimited. Parents saw shelves, kids saw worlds. And for decades, Toys R Us understood something profoundly human. Children didn't want convenience. They wanted wonder. But corporate debt, private equity decisions, online competition, all of it slowly drained the magic away. Stores lost investment. Shelves felt emptier. Experience became transactional. Then came bankruptcy. Closures. Goodbye. The tragedy isn't just that a company failed. It's that an entire generation lost a place designed specifically for their joy. Because once toys, our dust disappeared. Childhood itself started to feel a little more digital, a little more distant, and a lot less magical. Maybe the hardest part isn't that these stores are gone. It's that nothing ever truly replaced what they gave us. We didn't just lose places to shop. We lost places to wander without purpose. Places where teenagers learned who they were. Places where families spent time together without needing a screen. Malls weren't just convenient. They were social ecosystems. Anchor stores like Sears, Kmart, and Woolworths held everything together. When they weakened, the entire structure quietly collapsed. Online shopping gave us speed. Algorithms gave us convenience. But they didn't give us belonging. And that's why these memories still hit so deeply. Because somewhere along the way, we didn't just upgrade technology. We traded away something human. So here's the real question. Which of these stores was part of your life? Was it wandering the aisles of Toys R Us? Waiting for your photos at Eckerd? Fixing something with your dad after a trip to Western Auto? Trying on shoes at Kinney Shoes before school started? Share your memory in the comments. Tell your story. Because as long as we keep telling them, these places aren't truly gone.